This is session 2, part 2.
But when people say it's hot now, particularly in Queensland, when people say it's hot, I go, yeah, this is not really hot yet. The other day it was hot. We had 42 or 43 the other day, and it was pretty warm. But yeah, it's just remarkable, isn't it, even how our emotions affect the absorption of our environment. Is what I notice happens for a lot of people, that they're very intolerant of large environmental swings. It's certain, got to keep their environment in a certain level, and that's all about emotion. Wanting to keep your environment in a certain level, in a certain temperature, a certain comfort zone. It's all about emotion. Okay, let's go.
Okay. We've talked about this one a lot, so I'll just say it.
Yeah.
We feel that emotions pass through us and don't stay with us.
Yep. So it's really important, the pass-through thing, you know.
You feel that you are not permanently what you feel. However, you feel what you feel. You feel what you feel while you feel it.
Yes.
You feel you are what you feel while you feel
So
it.
you get that one? You feel what you feel while you feel it.
You feel you are what you
In
feel.
other words, you temporarily feel, if you're afraid, you temporarily feel that your whole being is afraid, right? But it's a temporary condition, not a permanent state. A person who doesn't want to feel their emotions always believes that a negative emotion is going to finish up being a permanent state. And they use that as an excuse to not feel the emotion.
Okay. You feel that having others share your experience actually cheapens your experience.
Can I sort of explain that a bit more? When you fully engage your emotion, it's your personal experience, and it's really quite powerful, and it's very hard to talk about, right? When you fully feel it, very hard to talk about it, because you can't properly explain it to another person in order for them to understand what it felt like. So after a while, what you start feeling is that talking about your own emotion, aside from a teaching perspective, talking about your own emotion just cheapens your own emotional experience. It doesn't actually assist you in any way. If talking about your emotion helps you get into emotion, then it means you're in addiction. Does that make sense? Yeah. And most people are actually in that addiction. They need somebody to share them with the emotional experience, and so they need someone to talk to about their experience rather than just feeling it. There's a difference between going to a therapist and having them, do some body work or something and letting you just feel, than going to someone to talk to and just talk to about it and then you feel. Right? Because when you talk and then feel, while it might help you initially, there is an addiction involved in it, in that you need somebody to listen. And you're unprepared to go through your emotion unless somebody listens. And that is obviously a big addiction.
Yep.
G'day.
Cool. I like this one.
Mm-hmm. Don't you like them all?
I love them all, but this is a favourite for this moment.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that emotions are open-heartedly welcomed. So they're not just okay. Our heart is saying, yes, please. Emotion.
Open-heartedly welcomed. Yeah. Now, it's pretty easy to open-heartedly welcome some positive thing, right? It's a lot more difficult to open-heartedly welcome fear or shame or something like that. But after a while, we start feeling that it's like a relief to get to that place. Yeah. And it is a real relief to get to that place properly. And it's only people who have not gotten to those places who don't understand how relieving it is. It's such a beautiful place to be open-hearted to all of your own emotion. Yeah. Of course, if you're open-hearted to your own emotion, you're also open-hearted to everyone else's too, which means that you're easy to be around from an emotional perspective. You allow other people's emotions to flow. And that also makes them more comfortable to feel their emotions when they're in your company. So it has a positive benefit to others too.
We also begin to feel that others are real when they are emotional around us. So rather than fearing other people being emotional around us, we welcome that as well and recognise, wow, that's my brother or sister being themselves.
Like if he's angry, that's my brother being angry. You know, that's better than him covering over his anger and making out it's not there. Right. You know, even if he's angry with me, it's better than him covering over and making it's not there, and he's in total denial.
Yeah. Okay. We feel that when others are emotional, they're being real. I said that one. Feel that emotions need to be in harmony with love in order for a connection with God to be maintained.
So in other words,
talked
we're
about that one a
not
lot
interested so much in feeling emotions that are disharmonious with love. We are more focused on finding the emotion that is harmonious with love. So what I mean by that is that there are times when you have a choice inside of you emotionally to go to one place or another. So, for example, sometimes you could get angry, right? But fear is driving your anger, right? And if you chose anger, it would only be a manipulation of your environment. It's not a childhood anger, let's say. It's an adult anger where you choose to manipulate your environment with it. Now, a person who's open-hearted with their emotions would choose the fear instead to feel that. Does that make sense? Another problem that many of you have is choosing self-punishment. Now, a person who chooses self-punishment is choosing to avoid a deeper emotion that's more painful. Usually it's an emotion where your parents punished you. So it's usually an emotion associated with other people harming you that you don't want to feel because it's so painful. And so what we finish up doing is we go into this state of desiring to punish ourselves rather than have them feel that emotion. And a person who's open-hearted with their emotions wouldn't do that. We would focus more on feeling what the real feeling is, whatever that feeling is. Yep.
Okay, we feel that emotions out of harmony with love must be experienced to be released, which we've covered a lot about that, haven't we? We've talked about...
We've talked about that.
Yeah. We feel that growth is impossible without the experience of emotions.
So we're not addicted to convincing ourselves that we've already grown when we haven't felt any emotion. You know, we have a tendency to do that, right? To try to convince ourselves we're over something before we've even gone through anything.
Yeah.
You can't be over something unless you've gone through something, right? And even when we've started to go through it, we hope that we've finished it before we have. We wouldn't do that either, right? We would allow, you know, sometimes I hear people say, oh, I thought I was over that. I go, no. Why does that distress you? Oh, because I've cried about that for a month, you know. I thought I was over it. Well, you're going to have to cry for it for 2 months, obviously. You know, if you're open-hearted with your emotions, you'll just let that happen. You won't go, oh, I've had a month, that's enough now. Can you see that? You would actually go, no, I'm going to do what is necessary, even if it's 6 months or 12 months or 18 months or 10 years. I'm going to do what's necessary. You wouldn't have the attitude of, oh, 1 month, that's enough. 1 hour. Most of us have got this attitude. 10 minutes, that's enough. That's how most of us feel with our emotions, right? But to be 100%, like if you multiply the 10 minutes in a day, man, it starts adding up, doesn't it? Because you go, okay, if we're only emotional for 10 minutes of the day, and how many minutes are there in a day? There's 60 seconds times by
60 minutes.
60 minutes makes 1 hour times by 12. No?
20.
Well, it depends how awake you are most of the time, I suppose, but really it's 24, isn't it? So what's that? So it's 3,600 times by 24. That's how many minutes there actually are in the day. Now let's say we do it by 12 because we're asleep half the time, right? And we don't know what we're doing in a sleep state. Hopefully we're making the same choices as we are in our awake state. But let's just go for that. So it's 3,600 by 12, which is what our doable time is around about, or a bit more than that maybe. That's assuming we sleep 12 hours a day. Probably not. So we might make it by 16, shall we? Most of us would sleep 8 hours a day. What's that? 66, 36, what is it? It's a lot of minutes, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Now, if you then get that figure, so let's just get it out. So, oops. That's how many minutes we've got available in the day. 57600, and we've used 10 of those to feel. Now, would you be that happy with that? If somebody said, "Oh, I've got to come to work for you for a day," and they gave you 10 minutes. I don't know if you'd be that happy with that. And to be honest, the most of us were probably not that happy with that, if we looked at it that way. And yet we convince ourselves that that's good. We did good today. 10 minutes of open-hearted emotional feeling. Compared to 100%, of feeling, we're feeling 1% of the time. Now, we want to improve it from 1% to 2% to 5% to 10%. We want to improve the feeling process so that it's all the time. That's what we want to do in the end. And if we are happy with 10, with 1% of the time, then it probably demonstrates that we don't have the right attitude to our emotion, doesn't it? It's probably proof that we don't. We need to have a good look at why.